Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, the Bay Area's premier author interview program. The title of our book today is Full of Grace, Miraculous Stories of Healing and Conversion Through Mary's Intercession, and it's written by Christine Watkins, published by Ave Maria Press. Now, Christine Watkins is a person from my past. I knew her when she wasn't an author, when she was merely one of the wonderful dancers who would come to my church. And what was the name of the troupe?
It was Omega West Dance Company.
Omega West. And there were, usually 4 of you or 5 at the most?
4 to 8.
Wow. It was a wonderful time. I miss it.
Oh.
I really do.
I'm sorry my body gave out.
Well, it's not only your body giving out, it's my church giving out in terms of not being so welcoming. She is a lot of things now. As I say, I remember her initially as a dancer in this wonderful liturgical dance troupe. But now she's a lot of other things. She is a Master of Theological Studies from the Jesuit School of Theology, a Master of Social Welfare from the University of California at Berkeley School of Social Welfare, and you've worked 10 years now as a spiritual director, bereavement counselor, inspirational speaker, and retreat leader. How did you find the time to do a book?
I have no idea. That has to be God.
So, and this book is the kind of book that doesn't come along that often. This is the story, real stories of real people who experience real conversions. And there are 6 stories in all, and they are transformational stories, they're conversion stories, and all of them are tied to a place called Medjugorje. What it is, Medjugorje?
Medjugorje is a small town in the former Yugoslavia, which is now called Bosnia and Herzegovina. And in 1981, the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus, allegedly began appearing there and has been appearing there for the last 30 years. And this is not unknown in the history of humankind. She's appeared in other places like Fatima. It's been proven in Fatima, Portugal. Mm-hmm. And many miraculous things are happening there now, things that happened when Jesus was alive on earth, miraculous healings, people coming to peace, coming to a faith they didn't have before, and really changing their lives.
And she continues to appear to the same 6 or so people?
She began appearing to 6 kids. Mm-hmm. They were teenagers at the time, and now they're in their 40s or so. And her first message was, I have come to remind people that God exists. And so these same 6 people have been barraged by questions for 30 years, and they're still kind, and they're still humble, and they say the messages of peace and love that she's giving are not about them, and they answer all these questions day in, day out from pilgrims with great kindness.
Now, you personally have been to Medjugorje a number of times. When was the first time?
The first time was in 2001 or end of 2000.
Okay. Was that with your husband?
With my husband.
All right.
Right after we got married.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you've been there again and again? Why?
And again.
Why?
Well, I always made fun of people who did that. I thought, why do you keep going across the world? God is here. And then, of course, I ended up being one. Be careful of what you make fun of. And there were different reasons each time. Actually, Mary calls people to go personally and specifically. And each time I went was a different reason. The first reason was for my husband, because he completely changed during and after that trip. He became a different man, and it really helped our marriage, and it helped him for life. And then the other reasons were helping other people or something I was to receive. And on a couple of the trips, I met people who would end up in the book. And little did I know that God had this plan to bring us all together and have us share our stories.
One of the things you do a wonderful job of in the book, I think, is describing, if you will, the physical, the environmental experience of being there and going up the hill. Is that like something you'll never forget?
Absolutely. I have never felt anywhere on earth the peace that I felt there. It was definitely otherworldly. I remember actually trying to worry about something and I couldn't. and I'm pretty good at that. I mean, I grew up as a professional worrier, and so there I remember feeling so much peace. It was pouring through me and in my heart, and I thought there's got to be something to worry about. There's got to be something. And I actually tried to grab onto something, and it's as though worrisome thoughts were about 3 feet away from me and they wouldn't come in. And praying with others and walking up Apparition Hill where Mary first appeared to the children, and walking up Cross Mountain, on top of which there are many, many miracles, one of which my husband witnessed, you just get a sense of not being alone. Someone's with you, someone's carrying you up and down that hill.
Wow. Now, I have a dumb question. The appearances have been going on for 30-plus years now, and the same 6 people, for the most part, are the ones who experience the apparitions. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, how then, and Mary speaks to them.
Yes.
Some way or other. How then does the word get out from those that 6 people to someplace in the book, you say the whole world? Right.
Well, I've been present at some of the apparitions, and in one of the apparitions, I was sitting right next to Mariana, who's one of the visionaries. Yeah. And what I saw her do, she looks up in the air, tears are streaming down her face, and they've done studies, scientific studies. Well, they will shine lights into her eyes, they will pinprick her, and she will not react. And she's in a state of ecstasy, and so I was right next to this, witnessing it. It was very powerful. And right after the apparition ended, you can see her whole countenance change. She bends her head down. She begins to write. She gives these to a central office in Medjugorje where they're translated by a priest, and then they get sent out to the world.
Full of Grace, too holy a book for you out there? Wait a minute. It's also about, among other things, a confused atheist, a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, and a nightclub stripper. So stay tuned.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email JimFosterCoc@gmail.com.
This is Jim Foster, and it is Conversations on the Coast. Full of Grace is the title we're dealing with today. The author, Christine Watkins, is with us. The publisher is Ave Maria Press. And one of the folks who has something nice to say about your book is a gentleman by the name of Wayne Weibel. Mm-hmm. And who is he?
He's a man who was a Lutheran, and he would call himself a past lukewarm Lutheran, and he had a lukewarm Lutheran.
They're the worst kind.
Oh, dear. We love them. Yeah. And he felt when he was watching a video on Medjugorje that Mary spoke to his heart and asked him to spread the news of what was going on there. And he has actually devoted his life to that and written many books and given many talks on the subject.
Oh, he's kind of the expert.
He's definitely one of them.
And he says, Christine Watkins' beautiful and touching collection of conversion stories prompted by Medjugorje apparitions is further proof of the good fruits of this ongoing phenomenon. The stories are direct, they're honest, heart-rending, and miraculous. So that's getting it right from the top. Mm. Yeah, that should sell 50,000 copies right there. To me, one of the extraordinary things about Full of Grace is that you're one of the stories. And I'm curious how that happened. What kind of decision process went into putting yourself into the book?
Years ago, I started writing little snippets of my life onto scratches of paper and throwing them into a box marked autobiography. And I really honestly didn't want to put it into a book because it's a lot of dirty laundry, a very embarrassing past. But I knew in the depths of my heart that it could help people who'd been through a similar past of promiscuity, looking for answers, not being able to find them. And I was very sick inside my soul and body. And one day on pilgrimage, this was my second one to Medjugorje, I got one of those very rare, clear callings from God. A lot of times those who are praying and seeking God aren't always sure what he wants or what he's saying. This was one of those rare moments where, like a frying pan, he came down from heaven, hit me over the head and said, it's
Boing.
boing. I was questioning if I was to write a book, and he said, it's me. I've been calling you to write the book. It's me. And so that was one of those knowings that set me on a different path. I cleared my schedule, and I knew my story had to be in there. And then shortly after that, all these remarkable people came into my life with the stories that really knocked my socks off. I'd never heard stories like these before, and then they ended up in the book.
One of the things about a conversion journey, I guess, is that everyone has somebody who helps them along. Mary, of course, and so on, but also people on earth. And in your case, there's a man in Marin, I believe, whom you identify simply as Joseph. That was an amazing portion of your story, I think.
Yes, sometimes people can come into our lives to really help us, and he helped me in a most extraordinary way. And I think about a priest who once said in his homily how we don't get to heaven alone, how we're always holding someone else's hand who's pulling us up, and meanwhile we have another hand lowered to pull someone else up with us. And he pulled me up. And there were several extraordinary spiritual experiences around what he did for me. But one was to let me know that what I'd been doing was harmful. And that opened my conscience up to the life I'd been leading. And I don't know if you want me to tell the whole shebang of my conversion story or not.
No, I want to go to what happened afterwards, because as I read your story, I said, this is the kind of story I expected, because she is, as I recall her from our former acquaintance, a person of great energy and willing and able to do a lot of different things at the same time. And what pleases me about your story is that at a certain point in it, you can say this about what you're doing after your conversion. I ministered to women in prison, people with AIDS, and as resident minister in a college dorm. Then I began working as a social worker and bereavement counselor with the dying and grieving through hospice care, which prepared me for a later job as a post-abortion counselor and education director with a license in clinical social work. In addition, I worked as a spiritual director, inspirational speaker, retreat leader, and parish mission preacher. And by God's grace, I entered into the sacrament of marriage with a loving man named John. And that's what I really like about your story, as we find out. So she was converted. What did it all amount to? It amounted to a life of great value, a great value to people whom you love, great value to people out there. All the stories of conversion told and full of grace are powerful, captivating. Stay tuned to hear more about my favorite, Papa Jaime, hero of the Pagoda Sewers.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
This is Conversations on the Coast. I'm Jim Foster. Full of Grace is the book with a subtitle, Miraculous Stories of Healing and Conversion Through Mary's Intercession. The author, the wonderful Christine Watkins, is with us, and you can be with her next weekend. Christine Watkins will be appearing at the Paulist Center Bookstore, 614 Grant Avenue, just off California Street, next Saturday at 6 o'clock in the evening, and then on Sunday at 9:30 and 12 noon. She'll probably do the kind of things that authors do at these appearances, chat, read from the book, sign copies, and so on. For more information, call the Paulist Center Bookstore, 415-288-3844. we rarely have the opportunity to let people know what an author is doing. So I'm just thrilled to death.
Oh.
Bogota. I mispronounced that. Now, this strange man, how about when I said his name? Was that pretty good?
Very good.
Okay. Papa
Jaime.
Papa Jaime. He's unbelievable. He is absolutely unbelievable. And the interesting thing about him and some of the other stories here is that this, I don't know, from the story I read about him, he was never a bad guy, seems to me.
No, he wasn't like me. I messed up, almost died from what I was doing, and I'm only here because of a miracle. So that's my story.
But he was out there doing pretty well, and somehow he went into the sewer in Bogota. Tell us about that.
Jaime was driving down the street in Bogota, Colombia, and he saw a little girl on the side of the road bleeding, and he put her in his car, took her to the hospital, paid for her care. She came out, and he said, "Take me to your home." And she said, "Okay." And he said, "Where do you live?" And then she began to walk toward the city sewers. And he followed her into the city sewers in a suit covered with her blood. He's wading in the muck, and he wants to turn around and go back. The water's frigid. There's rats scurrying around. It's almost completely dark except for a little candle that she's holding. And he discovers down there that day that there are thousands of children living in the sewers, escaping from these death squads who want to kill them as kind of a social cleansing because they're robbing people and they're taking drugs.
Two things about his story that are hard to believe. One, the death squads. Two, the fact that nothing's really being done, and there are occasions, like when it rains, that they must drown by the hundreds.
They do drown. The water comes up so high, and Jaime himself almost drowned. And there's a story in the book there where he's trying to save 2 children and how harrowing it is. And what I like about his story is that even amidst all this darkness, he has called upon the Virgin Mary to protect his foundation he founded to help these children and rescue them single-handedly and rehabilitate them in an organization he started. And he fully believes she's helping, and his heart is brimming with joy when he does this work. He loves it, and he loves to see the smiles on the children's faces when he can bring them out of that darkness, and he doesn't go in with dread and fear to rescue them.
And he walks around with a suit on, and he just does it.
And he just wades. He just does it.
Wades into the muck and mire and does it.
And pressed through his naturally human feelings of repugnance.
He was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Why the heck didn't he win? What's going on with those guys?
Well, this humble man saw all the paperwork he'd had to fill out to do that and decided it was too much to bother with. He had stuff to do, and he didn't bother turning in his name.
Oh, that's so wonderful. My kind of guy.
Well, you did the same, right, Jim? When you were nominated, you don't have time for that?
I said, forget it.
Right.
I just fired my secretarial staff, and I wasn't going to sit down.
I knew it.
Word process that stuff. Now, there is a part of, I think it's his story. Let me look. Yeah, that I would like you to read to our friends out there. It's the part that's marked on those 2 pages. Could you do that for us, please?
Sure. When I patrol the streets in a rescue effort, I pass through dire poverty and hopelessness. When I descend underground, I enter into a surrealistic place of sickening darkness and endless nights, where children still wait to be rescued. There I see no love, no light, no affection, only desperation as they search in vain for consolation, for hope, for a hug, for a word of kindness. Yet there I find joy. I find my calling. I never draw attention to the hellish conditions in which the children live, nor do I treat them with pity. I act as though their surroundings were completely normal. My focus is on how I can help them. What moves me is love, and love is what can heal them. Once, when I was rescuing children from a sewer in Bogota, I came up to the surface with my clothes wet and foul, and some people came up to me to tell me that they wouldn't do that for 1,000,000 pesos, and that they considered me a saint. I replied that I wasn't a saint, nor would I do it for 1,000,000 pesos, but that I enjoyed doing it because I did not act out of fear, but love. My work for the foundation has always been and will always be only as a volunteer. I don't receive any money from it. In 1990, I was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, but I preferred to be busy helping the children instead of filling out all that paperwork, so I decided not to enter my name.
Christine Watkins reads beautifully. The book, again, is full of grace. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.